Welcome to our LCTA panel discussion. I'm Marcy Brower.
I'm Heather Garcia.
Shari Gawanter.
Hello.
And we'll start with our first question. Why have you decided to run for school board, and what do you hope to achieve?
Well, there's still so many things to do. I feel great about my first almost 8 years standing up for teachers, standing up for kids, and I just couldn't abandon ship at this point. I think we're in a real precarious time in public education. There are many out there to try to really topple the whole situation, and my opinion is we, public schools, are the bedrock of our democracy, and I just can't let that go. I've spent my whole life trying to come up with ideas and innovations to make our school system the best, and I know if the stress rolls downhill, so it rolls down from the legislature, it rolls down to the superintendent, it rolls down to the principals, it rolls down to the teachers, and then it rolls down to the kids. So anything I can do to make the situation less stressful, then that's what I'm going to try to do. I have all the experience. I think we'll talk about that later, so I'll wait on that one.
You were queuing up question 2 already. What is your background and
Okay.
experience with schools and public education?
Okay, well, I graduated from FSU a long time ago, and I was looking for a job. I was going to go to grad school up somewhere in the north, but I need a job. So I went to Leon High School and I became the safe school director. And what it turned out to be was I was keeping Leon High School safe from the kids they gave me. And it just turned out I loved them. Sometimes the kids who just needed a little different environment, a little different structure, a little more personalization. And so that's how I got involved at the time in 1975 with, it was called the Alternative Learning Center. And I became a teacher, social studies teacher, reading teacher, how to be a helping person teacher. There were so few of us, I taught 5 different courses a day, which was fine with me because we had a democratic decision-making model, which I totally believe in. And so we, the teachers, the principal, the students, we got to decide the rules. It was a brand new school, so that's my background. And then at 27, we fought to keep the school open. We won. The principal took a leave. She went to Saudi Arabia to teach science, and the superintendent asked me if I would be the principal, thinking it was only going to be for the rest of the year. So I went and asked the teachers, y'all talk about it, and if you vote for me, I'll say yes. So they did. And then I stayed as the principal for 32 years until I retired. And it's the best job. I mean, I love being a teacher, and I really love being a principal because you can really help create a school climate that everybody's happy in. Oh, and I've been on the school board for 8 years. I retired, and I was still writing articles about what was wrong with the legislation going on. And then I realized, wait a minute, I'm better working from the inside, because you can just write a little letter and you're by yourself, and I think the impact is better when you can affect more people, and especially since I have a good relationship with the superintendent, that's helped a lot.
What is your plan to address the teacher and staff shortages in our district, and how will you help to improve the retention of highly qualified educators?
Well, I think it's really important that we all speak with one voice about how great it is to be a teacher. It's gotten kind of a bad rap in the last many years. Don't make enough money, it's hard. Well, the truth is, it's the most impactful job in the world. And if you're a teacher and if you step into that role and you realize that you are making this effect for the rest of these kids' lives, and they'll see you in the grocery store, in 25 years and say thank you. They may not say thank you at that very moment, but they will later, and they'll remember you. I mean, that's a life worth living to me. And so I think we should all work on that, and we should grow our own, and that's sort of part of that is and I think Sarah Hembry is really working on recruiting teachers and getting our interns hired before they go somewhere else, and just pumping up education, how great a job it is. as far as teachers that are veteran teachers, we need to, I think, call on them more for advice and for collaboration for teaching our new teachers, really making sure there's that good partnership because they have so much to offer. Experience matters in our field. It really does. And so helping the first 2 or 3 years are the hardest. You veteran teachers know that. And so if you've made it through that, then I think it's incumbent upon all of us to have a really good system for helping these new young teachers and not be alone.
Please share your position on school choice, including charter schools and private schools that receive taxpayer dollars to fund student scholarships.
I have a real problem with taxpayer dollars going to unaccountable systems. I have less of a problem with charter schools, especially those homegrown ones that aren't a for-profit situation, because I think parents deserve some choices and there is some accountability there. My caveat to that is there's too much ability to select students by not providing bus transportation or saying, oh, we don't have that ESE service, and we don't say no to anybody, right? Everybody walks in the door, they're our kid, and we take care of them best we can. But on the hierarchy, you know, to me, they're better than this private school voucher situation. We're now subsidizing a lot of kids and parents who were already going to private school and paying for it, and now they're taking advantage of this voucher program. And there are no standards. There's no standards for teachers, there's no accountability, nothing. And so, and same with homeschool. I think a lot of original homeschool parents were really dedicated to teaching their kids, and they wanted to do it in their own way, and I think some of that was just fine. But what's happened now is there's an incentive, an $8,000 per child incentive, to keep your kid at home and do whatever. I used to kid and say, I'm going to form a jumbotron school in my backyard and just invite all the neighborhoods and you know, get $8,000 a kid. There's no regulation. And while there's some little private schools that I love, grassroots free school, I live near there. But I think if you're not going to have state accountability, then you need to do it on your own. I mean, taxpayers who don't have any kids in school, for example, they're paying for the next generation to be taught. And we have standards and we have all kinds of protections. And I don't think it's fair to taxpayers to say, you know, I'm going to go off and have my 2 or 3 person private school and take taxpayer dollars, and they have no idea what's happening to them. So I just don't think it's fair.
All right, we're going to go into state legislators. While state legislators have an important role in deciding statewide education standards that guide instruction, do you believe these same elected officials should be directly involved in influencing what school district curriculum, materials, and instructional resources are used in schools locally, or should this decision be made by the superintendent and school board?
Well, my whole life I've heard home rule, home rule. That's the thing that's important. And of course we need to have, I think, statewide standards. That's really important. And I think that's the job of the legislature and the governor to make sure that people are getting equal funding, all those sorts of things. But when it comes down to what textbook teachers want to use, I think, again, it should be a district decision so you can transfer back and forth to schools and be using the same material. But I think that's our decision. And I think that's why we get elected. It's almost to the point where, you know, if they're going to take over everything, why even have a school board? I thought that was going to be my job. And so, you know, recently I've been trying to carve out some places where they didn't say something. Because there's so much, you have to do this, you have to do this. So I'm always looking for, well, what didn't they say? What can we do? Because sometimes fear just takes over. And so people do less than they're actually allowed to do by law. Freedom of speech is one of them.
Thank you.
please share your plan to collect input from and work with parents and employees in making decisions that affect our schools and community. Would you be in favor of hosting teacher focus groups to build relationships and hear concerns at least once a semester?
I would love to do that. You know, as a school board member, we have this different role that I'm used to. I'm more of a hands-on, let's get this done because of my principal background. So sometimes I don't get to hear everything that I need to because people don't report to me. Everybody reports to the superintendent in the school system. Now parents have easy access to me because I have a phone number, email, I answer calls, I call back. But I'm sure there's some fear when, you know, there's a chain of command in our school system, and I respect that. But there needs to be a way for school board members to also hear from not only our parent and our constituents, but also from our teachers and our secretaries and our custodians. So I would love that, to have forums that we could just come and answer questions, or really, I'd call it a listening tour. I think that would be great.
Ms. Wood, this question comes from one of our members. Given your publicly stated feelings and statements regarding Superintendent Hannah, how can you assure your constituents that you can maintain objectivity and serve the district's best interest independently and impartially?
That's a good question. We are colleagues, and we, you know, known each other a long time, so we have a really good relationship, and I find that, you know, I think this whole thing should be about how we build trust in relationships, because he will take my call and I will take his call. And what you see in public isn't always what you see behind the, you don't see behind the scenes. So I think it's true with the teachers union as well. You know, if we can hash out some things in private or just talking like, you know, colleagues, I think that helps to not have an appearance, at least, of all this dissension, which I think we've fallen into a bit, and I don't like. So there's plenty of times we don't agree with each other, and because we have this open dialogue relationship, I feel I get listened to. There are some school boards very nearby that the superintendent doesn't even attend the school board meetings because the relationship's not good. And communication and relationships are the key to success for everything. So I don't think I have any problem separating my personal views from his if they conflict. But I usually try to work them out before the big school board meeting, right? So sometimes you see things get withdrawn. Well, a lot of times that's because a school board member has said, you know, I don't think this is ready for prime time. We need to think about this some more. Or we'll take something off the agenda if it's not quite fully baked.
Okay. Education unions have an important role in supporting school employees. What do you believe the proper role of the union should be in working with the school board? As a school board member, how will you work with our union?
I was just thinking back to some other things I wish I'd said to that last question.
Sure.
Could I go back?
Absolutely. Then I'll re-ask the question.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
I remember when I first ran for office in 2016, we had this Tallahassee Democrat interview, and at the time, Rocky Hanna was running against Jackie Pons, both of who I know. And they said, you know, which one do you want? I said, I can work with anybody. And I still feel that way. You know, whoever gets elected, I'm gonna work with. It's just, I happen to be seeing some of the progress we're making, and I think sometimes it takes a long time, especially with our setback with COVID, to get some of the things in place that as a superintendent I really agree on. And a lot of that is, you know, really pushing this young learning, early childhood emphasis, and he is completely dedicated to that, as am I. And also really helping to articulate alternative career paths for our kids. And I really feel like we're making a lot of progress, you know, 22 new career paths in the last 8 years, so that every kid isn't expected to go to college. Maybe they just don't want to, and we need to be able to provide things for them. And so there are just some initiatives that he has got going, I believe, and that we're about to turn the corner on, that I want to continue with, and that's one of the reasons I'm publicly endorsed him.
All right, thank you. Okay. Now I'll go back to education unions have an important role in supporting school employees. What do you believe the proper role of the union should be in working with the school board? As a school board member, how would you work with our union?
Well, I think I have a good track record on working with the union. Every teacher I know can call me anytime. I meet with your president on a quarterly basis at least. We talk on the phone because I do want to hear the input from the union. I think it's important to keep everybody honest, and by telling us things that we might not know, that's a good thing. So I think this dynamic to have a good relationship and good communication with the union is really important. And I support you guys 100%, even though sometimes I get mad at you. I'm sure you get mad at me, but I think in the end we're all working toward the same thing. We want what's best for our kids, and I don't have a doubt about that with anybody that sits on the school board with me, the superintendent, his staff, and every employee in Leon County Schools.
Thank you.
Student behavior and attendance has become a very serious problem for educators. What ideas do you have to support administration and teachers to address these issues while maintaining safe schools?
Well, I'm glad all the things we've done to enhance safety, securing the buildings, all the camera things. I think, again, I really appreciate what the superintendent's done with that. I think it's unbelievable difference. It's unfortunate in many ways. Things are much more caged off. I don't like that, but we know we just have to do it. So we've done that. Sorry, remind me a little bit more of what you wanted me to focus on.
Sure. So
Discipline.
student behavior and attendance.
Okay, got it.
That's the key.
Well, one of the keys is having a trust and a bond with the parents, just to be not gotcha, but parents saying, how can we help? How can we support this endeavor that you teachers and principals are trying every day to help educate their children, so that it's sort of, I should have rehearsed this if I really want to say it, but it's kind of like the JFK line, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the same way with the schools. We need to create more of an atmosphere where parents are engaged and they understand what the rules are, and they're supporting the rules. They're not, if their child breaks a rule, they're not trying to defend their child for breaking the rule. They're supporting the school. So I think the more we can build that collaboration with parents, the better. As far as attendance, one of the best things for attendance is student engagement. Really pushing hands-on learning, engaging the students, being personal with the students, having no fear, and I'm talking about teachers, having no fear of really focusing on that child's needs. And sometimes I think some of these rules that have come down have created an atmosphere of fear of teachers being threatened with their teacher certificate if they say the wrong thing. And so, that really concerns me. But attendance also, of course, starts at home, and we need to really, really, send the message out loud and clear, which we're trying to do right now, and have some consequences at school. As far as discipline goes, I think there should be, a lot of steps, because kids make mistakes, and we don't need to be throwing them out and suspending them unless they really violate a rule, and then we have to be clear, strict, and consistent. And I think we need to have some more consistency within the district than we do now. I know we've been working on that for the last couple of years, and sometimes we struggle as a district, I think, between school-based management and district management, because we have a long tradition of school-based management. And believe me, as a principal, I loved it, because you get to really do things in your school that your staff and everybody wants. At the same time, you can't have disparate rules at schools. For example, right now, I've asked us to work on a clear policy on cell phones at schools. We have a policy that says students cannot have cell phones during instruction. But my question is, how are we enforcing that? And are we doing it one way at one school and one way at another school? Because that just sends the wrong message. So I think some, consistency and discipline across the district is important.
What are your views on how to best provide FAITH, a free, appropriate public education for ESE students or students with disabilities within Leon County schools? Do you support smaller class sizes and caseload caps? Why or why not?
Well, that's an easy question to say yes to, right? Of course we want caps, of course we want smaller class sizes. The problem is, as I'm sure you know, we don't have enough certified ESE teachers. It's a difficult thing to teach, and I don't think there are enough incentives statewide to get certified in ESE. It should be totally free. People don't want you to have to. We have some shortage areas we really need. I think one of the difficulties in figuring out, and I really would like the help of the teachers figuring this out, is you have different needs at different schools. And sometimes you'll have one, I'm gonna pick on speech and language, but it could be anything, with 8 kids, because that's all they need at that school, and they have 18 kids at another. And so how you provide equal services is very tricky, because I know most people wanna be at one school. They wanna be part of the faculty, and so do you have roving people? I mean, I think there's just some big questions to answer about how do you get caps on class sizes when, you have your class capped, let's say at 15 or 12, whatever it needs to be, and then one more kid walks in the door. But you don't have enough for 2 teachers, and so I think that's the dilemma and the problem we're struggling with. We need to get more funding from the legislature to meet the needs of our children. We have a lot of kids that have special needs, more than I've ever seen, and we need more funding so we can really meet the needs of our kids.
Given that Leon County School District emphasizes the goal of fiscal responsibility, and the state of Florida now has financial literacy as a high school graduation requirement, some think that Leon County schools should go a step further and offer financial literacy support to our school communities for our parents, students, and staff as a way to combat some inequities. Do you agree? If not, why? If so, what are your thoughts on a fiscally responsible implementation of such an effort?
Well, I saw this question before I came, and I tried to think about it. I know some schools are already providing workshops like on the FAFSA, which is great. It helps parents who don't know how to fill out those forms to get scholarship information. I'm not in favor of funding it through the general fund. It's really not our job. Now, adult ed could be offering courses on this. I think that would be great. I think we could pick up our pro bono work from our banks and accountants to come in and give free classes. But as far as the school system funding it, we need to save every penny we can for salaries. Come on, so we need to be careful about sponsoring everything under the heaven. But I do think we could help coordinate some efforts at schools to help parents with this very important issue: housing, credit cards, all these things that we're teaching our kids. And what I've also found is when we teach our kids well, they teach their parents. That's what happened with recycling. My daughter came home and she's like, "Mom, you can't put that in the trash can." So I think doing a good job as early as possible helping kids understand finance is the key, in some cases, to helping the parents.
Thank you.
Given the significance of communication throughout any organization, all sectors of Leon County school communities should have reliable home internet access. However, this isn't true for every Leon County school family and staff person, despite some of the programs that are available to assist select groups. What would you propose to assist those in Leon County schools community that do not have access and do not qualify for existing programs to address this need?
Well, again, we have to remember what our role is, right? We need federal support, which, there is some federal support coming, we're told, for broadband communication, especially in our rural areas. Comcast has a great program for $10. We need to, education is our goal. So that's our purpose. And so we can help educate parents about what's available. I'll say personally, I'm proud of when we had COVID and I didn't have an opponent for my last re-election in 2020. I donated $10,000 to the foundation to provide internet service during the COVID crisis. I felt really good about that. So I think we can ask our local people to help support that through our foundation. Again, I don't think we should spend general funds on that.
What is one piece of legislation that you would propose for the upcoming legislative session? And how do you plan to build or continue relationships with our state legislators?
Okay. I was trying to think of one thing I want to change because there's a lot of things I want changed. I might just be able to remember, but I hate to leave some out. The thing I've worked on this year that I don't know how many teachers know, I know Heather knows because she's a media specialist, but I've really worked on trying to get support for this crazy rule we have that only a media specialist can approve a classroom book. That is completely nuts. And it has resulted, and most people don't even know this, it's resulted in, y'all know it, teachers putting books in boxes and covering them up because the media specialist works. And they don't have time during the school day to do this. And I really pushed for supplemental funding, which the district provided some to help get this task accomplished. I think we had over 200,000 books in elementary school alone. So, that's just top of the list as far as what the legislature could change very easily. You could just provide a way for experienced educators with 3 years or more of experience to be able to approve books. Y'all are professionals. You know what book is okay. You know what the laws are. And it just comes back to trust. Putting the trust back between the legislature and our public schools, because it seems to have eroded, and it's causing a terrible burden on our schools, on our principals, on our teachers. So that'd be the first one. Can I name a few more?
Sure, we have time.
I'm gonna have to look at my list because I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many. Well, I mentioned fear. We need to, absolutely do what we've always done. We just uphold our ethics pledge. Every one of us take an ethics pledge when we are employed with a public school system. No problem. Everyone needs to have a high standard of ethics. But when there's legislation that threatens teachers with losing their teacher's license or going to jail, it creates an atmosphere of fear. And so rather than, you don't want to err on the side, you err on the side of caution, right? Because nobody wants that. And that just creates a bad atmosphere, and doesn't make people want to go into the teaching profession. So anything we could do to take out clauses in current legislature to take out these ridiculous punishments for, you might make a mistake, because it's gotten so controlled about what you can say, what you can't say. No teacher is gonna do something unprofessional that goes beyond their ethics requirements and pledge to harm a child. Your job is to help children, every child, and your job is to be you, whoever you are, and be the best teacher you can be. Obviously stick to the curriculum, but you shouldn't be afraid to have a side conversation with a student who needs your help, or have debates in your classroom about issues. One of the best parts of education is to set up a debate situation about very controversial issues, and just randomly assign people which side they have to argue. And we just don't have enough of that. And I think people, teachers, and I understand why, are staying away from topics that might be controversial, because a parent might object to one thing that was said, and that's not the way it should be. You know, we're supposed to live in a free society with diverse ideas, and everyone's supposed to be included, and you know, it never hurts a person to hear an idea that's different than their own, right? Because that's how you learn, and that's how you think about things, and you don't have to agree with it, but it's good to hear, and that's what I love about public schools. You know, we have such a diversity, different backgrounds, different religions, different ways we're brought up, and they've come together, and you learn about other people that you're going to have to get along with in life. So all this, I'm getting a little off track, but all this segmenting into people who think like you and going to a little school that everybody thinks the same way, that is not helping our culture or our society knit back together, because it's very divided right now, which is very, very unfortunate. Kids don't come to schools as Republicans or Democrats or MPA, you know, they're not thinking about that, and teachers aren't thinking about that. They just want their child to be able to read and to love reading and to have lots of literature available to them that reflect themselves. So, you know, any move, some of these laws that are just so restrictive about what you can have in the classroom, what you can have in the library, I think are wrong-headed, and in the long run will prove to have been a big mistake.
You've already touched on some of what you just said can tack into the question I'm about to ask. What steps have you taken to understand and protect the needs and rights of our LGBTQ+ students and staff? And what do you think will be your greatest challenge moving forward as a school board member to support these populations in our schools?
Well, you may not know this, but after I retired in 2010, I was asked to be on the advisory group to form an LGBTQ+ guide. Now, this guide was to help teachers and principals and coaches understand that community, because a lot of people don't understand, you know, especially when it gets to trans kids, things like that. You know, if it's not comfortable with you, for you, because you really haven't been around that, you need to know what's important to kids and to teachers. What, you know, maybe some advice on, you might try saying this instead of that to not hurt people's feelings, just all that. So that's why the guide was formed under Kathleen Rogers, and I helped with that, and so we revised it. And you know, the unfortunate part is it used to be a support guide, and now it's more like you can't do this guide. But we have kept some fundamental important things in that guide, and I think it's really important for all of us to understand the struggles that people go through, and especially in that community with the high suicide rate, the high depression rate. We have to protect them, and you can't protect people if you don't understand them. So I don't know if I answered that question totally.
The first part, yeah. The second part was, what do you think will be a challenge moving forward in being supportive of these populations, both students and staff?
Well, part of it is just, you know, speaking out. Hopefully I'll be in a position where I can do that as a school board member, and I don't really have anything to lose at this point. And you know, I just feel it's my job to stand up for vulnerable kids, LGBTQ kids, ESC kids, kids that get bullied. I mean, that's, you know, that's what I love to do. That's what I believe in strongly, and I'll continue to do that from the mountaintop as much as I can.
All right, I think we're at the end now. Is there anything that we've not covered that you would like to add?
Well, I think I said this, but I think as far as the union goes and the school board, the superintendent, we need to build trust. I think some trust issues have been broken, and I think that hurts collaboration. And collaboration is honestly the key to getting things done. And it's, as I said earlier, it's not always in the public meeting where that gets done. I think when people are defensive and feel attacked, they react with either, you know, a big barrier, and they don't listen anymore. So I think we can work on that, and I feel very positive that we can, because again, we're all here for the same purpose. We're here for kids, and so anyway, that's what I think we can work, and it's about communication. And I will say right out the bat, I think the district needs to do a better job. We need to be, open, transparent. Teachers, everybody needs to know what's going on. I think I didn't hear the question, but it was about how can we improve, and I really believe in climate surveys and more of those kind of surveys, like maybe focused, like teachers. If a problem is coming up, we need to send out together, a questionnaire, like, well, what's the problem? What's the solution? And have a more solution approached communication process. Like, okay, I hear that's a problem. Here's our problem. How can we, solve this together? Same thing with salary negotiations. How can we get the most money to our classrooms, to our teachers, to our employees, everybody? And what can we cut? What can we not cut? And I'd like to see collaboration in that, because we just have this limited amount of money, and I know myself, the superintendent, everybody on the board wants to push more money into salaries, and so, but it doesn't grow on trees, and we don't get enough money from the legislature. So how are we going? That's why I keep saying let's protect the general fund, because that's the only fund we can get salaries from, in addition to what the legislature needs to get. But we're not the enemy, you're not the enemy, and I think we just really need to work with that in mind.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
I will